Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the foreign policy challenges for Pakistan for the year 2021. Now, obviously, yesterday there was this very important briefing by the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, and he mentioned that now the government really is looking forward to sort of, have some sort of consensus towards the Kashmir policy, and he invited the members from Pakistan People's Party, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, as well as from Jamiat Ulama Islam. And he mentioned that we should come up with some viable proposals. But as usual, the kind of attitude the opposition parties have, again, the government came under fire and they said, well, the government hasn't done anything, and they all started praising about their own tenures. Now, in fact, the real story is that a lot has not been done the way it should have been handled, and that is pretty much the reason why this issue is at its optimum level at the moment as we speak. Now, currently, before I introduce my guest, let's go through a couple of interesting statements made by the Foreign Minister. He says the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has invited the opposition parties for talks and hammer out a comprehensive action plan aimed at the resolution of the lingering illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir dispute. He further added that Pakistan is part of the occupied Kashmir movement for self-determination, and every Pakistani citizen is advocating and will continue to advocate for such rights of Kashmiris. He said India has not succeeded in breaking their resolve. The extent to which the Kashmiris are alienated from the Indian government has not been seen in the last 72 years. Further said that it is good news that Joe Biden raised his voice about the way human rights are trampled in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and he said that we expect that he will continue to do the same in the future, and further added that the Indian forces are staging fake gunfights to kill Kashmiris. On the 5th of January, Indian forces killed 3 young Kashmiri men. Indian state-sponsored terrorism in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has went into overdrive since eliminating of its special status, abrogating the Article 370 and the Article 35A. Now, there are a couple of tweets. Let me read them for you. From the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it says, voices from around continue to condemn inhumane oppression of Kashmiris in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Malaysian Council of Islamic Organizations has strongly condemned worsening the human rights violations, extrajudicial killings, inhuman incarceration of Kashmiri leaders, especially of Ms. Asia Indarabi. Then MAPN has called upon UN to intervene in case of Ms. Indarabi and her associates to protect their human rights, demanded that India must be held fully responsible for the atrocities and crimes against humanity in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So, well, this dispute has been there for quite some time, but what should be the way forward? Other than that, when we talk about the kind of challenges Pakistan will face in this particular year 2021, how to go about them? I think that is the main question of the hour. Let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio, on my right, is Shaukat Paracha Saab. Needs to introduction as a senior journalist, senior anchor person. Thank you very much, Paracha Saab, for your time, sir.
My pleasure.
Yes, and we have with us Iltaf Hussain Wani Saab, senior Kashmiri leader. He is going to join us on Skype. Iltaf Wani Saab, Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much for your time. And we'll also be talking to Naseem Zehra Saiba. She's a senior journalist, columnist, writer, and we'll be taking her opinion on this issue as well. But Paracha, let me start off from you, sir. When the foreign minister yesterday mentioned about being on the same page and sort of coming up with some sort of viable solutions, and at least all the political parties, whether they are in the opposition or they are in the government, should form some sort of a strategy to counter this current problem. And as we all know that the regional dynamics, they have changed, US election, the Indian issue at the same time, the kind of engagement in Afghanistan, so on and so forth. I mean, there are so many challenges, I'm sure. But interestingly, the other day we also heard that the minister mentioned that Kashmir issue or the peace in Kashmir is linked directly with the peace in Afghanistan also in one way or the other. Let's start from there. Prasad, your take, sir.
Thank you very much. When the government says that the opposition should come on the same page vis-a-vis Kashmir, the government must explain what's its policy on Kashmir, whether it's a 30-minute stand-up every Friday or chances of war with India, or how Pakistan is going to ensure end of human rights violations and suppression inside Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, people of Pakistan also want to know what is the exact policy at the moment, because when you say the challenges for 2021, the most important challenge to Pakistan still remains Kashmir. Still the bigger security challenges on the eastern borders, because for most of the time Prime Minister Imran Khan, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and other leaders in this government, they talk of any so called surgical strike possibility or some kind of false flag operation from India. So, the main challenge for Pakistan in this year, which has just started, called 2021, the main challenge for Pakistan in the foreign policy issue, or for that matter in the security issue, still remains India because of the Kashmir situation. It is not only that the initiatives taken on 5th of August 2019, they are the source of challenge for Pakistan, but the situation inside the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the suppression and killing of 3 students recently, and incidents like that, they remain and they pose a major challenge to Pakistan. Then comes Afghanistan. Had Trump been there for another 4 years in the White House, then maybe the policy that was continuing now with the help of Pakistan, there might not have been as bigger challenge, But with the advent of Joe Biden on 20th of January, just after 2 weeks, or less than that, I personally don't know how President Joe Biden will follow the Trump policy.
Are we expecting a little too much from Mr. Joe Biden, as if he is going to take a total U-turn on Kashmir and on so many other issues like Iran for that matter, and so on and so forth? Because whenever you look at the history, sir, the Democrats always had a very, very strong biased approach towards Pakistan and India regarding that, sir. They were always inclined towards India in so many areas and so many issues, isn't it?
So, it is from Republican to Democrats. What you are saying, that is what I am saying. I mean, Republicans were there, and now the transition is from Republican towards Democrats. And you are yourself saying that Democrats traditionally have been pro-India. But the problem has been that even the Trump administration headed by Republican Party, that was not very warm towards Pakistan.
Exactly. Prasad, if you allow me, we've been joined by Naseem Zahra Sahiba.
Yeah, please.
And let me in fact take the same question to her and let's see what her opinion is about it. Naseem Zahra Sahiba, Assalamu alaikum. But I think there's some technical problem, or maybe we'll just try to get in touch. Yes, sir. Please
so,
continue.
Trump was following a policy, and that policy was, for example, by 25th of January, that they will have 2,500 soldiers, rest of them they will have been acquitted, and that was the residue force. Whether Joe Biden will follow this policy, whether he will evacuate from Afghanistan, I know there has been tremendous pressure back in United States that there should be a pullback from Afghanistan. But at the same times, we also heard the stories that the US administration, particularly the US establishment, that was not in favor of complete withdrawal from Afghanistan, and that created problems for Trump even. So, policy, and even if it is not true, but new president with that much expectations and hopes, he will bring some kind of changes or his own new policy vis-a-vis Afghanistan. The challenge remains, because we knew what is the Trump policy, and when Trump came, you remember on very 1st January, very early in the morning when we woke up, there was a tweet,
$33 billion.
And then Trump changed his mind. So now the Trump administration is changing, new administration is coming. Let's see, let's hope that sanity prevails everywhere and the process that has been
But you
initiated.
don't expect any major change, or do you?
A lot of conspiracies theories which personally I don't believe, but you have to cater for them. You have to listen to them. For example, if the establishment US administration, US establishment did not want to pull out from Afghanistan and Trump was acting against their will, then should we think that the Trump policy will continue? No, sir. When comes to the question of Iran, what Trump was following, it may not be the continuity of the Iranian policy of Trump. You know, Joe Biden will, these were the Democrats, Joe Biden was vice
It
president.
also matters from time to time, sir.
And Joe Biden was vice president when this treaty was signed, you know, 5+ and others, you know. So, if they return back to Iran, what will the reaction from the Middle East, from the GCC countries? Now, they are again united because of yesterday's GCC.
And that is very historic. We'll talk about that too,
And that has been a very welcome, you know, initiative by Prince Mohammed bin Salman, His Royal Highness Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, that he personally received the honorable guests from Qatar, from other countries, and
they sorted out their issue.
They sorted out their issue. So I mean, changing.
And remember, exactly 5-6 years ago, what was the situation like?
Yeah,
they were planning to make a
exactly,
canal all along the border.
Exactly,
they had stopped the flights,
exactly,
food supplies.
Yeah.
You name it, and the problem was
exactly. So yesterday,
Al Jazeera was the biggest issue.
Yesterday was a historic day.
Absolutely.
That there emerged Arab unity again. At least they had the courage to sit together. And again, I'll say the historic city, the ancient city, the archive city rather of Saudi Arabia, Al-Ala, that became center of once again that the Arab heads of states, they were sitting there, and this is the credit to His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, that he invited all of them and then he received all of them, and more so that he actually flourished this idea that let's have a you know, a rapport with our estranged
just
friends.
a quick comment regarding the Middle Eastern politics. The Thani family of Qatar versus the Al Sabah family of Kuwait, and then the royal family of Saudi Arabia. And they believe that the Qatari family has played a very important role in bringing these two together.
I think,
and other than that, sir, because initially, if you remember, they had issues with regarding the support of the Iranians or support of their opinion, I would say, in certain countries, and Qataris did not back out. Then they said, close down your television channel, which was very influential, is very influential, I think one of the best in the world, and they did not, and then the flights were stopped to fly over these couple of countries, including UAE and all. But now, sir, it seems that the Qataris, they have played a brilliant role, despite the fact that it's a very small country. But look at the kind of, you know, I think maturity they have shown as far as global politics is concerned when they invite the Afghan delegation to come to Doha and initiate. And it seems that maybe Doha is the capital of Kabul these days, because so many negotiations are taking place. I think it's a brilliant initiative. What sort of a message is it for Pakistan, sir, if these two countries can come so close and issues could be sorted out? I don't know on whose best, but as long as the problem is sorted, sir, problem is sorted.
Problem is sorted, and the role of Kuwait has been extraordinary. Amir of Kuwait and Foreign Minister of Kuwait, they have played a very vital role in bridging the gap between Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Qatar, you know. Pakistan was also part of the solution. Pakistan
That's
wanted,
what I've heard too.
Pakistan wanted that two brotherly countries, they should not remain estranged. But the major part is played by Kuwait, and Kuwait has emerged as a bridge between two estranged nations, two estranged countries, which are neighbors, the problem was, more problem was for Qatar. For example, there was air blockade. Qatar Airways is flying all over the world, but they could not use the airspace of Saudi Arabia. It's surrounded by Saudi Arabia. If you keep the map of Arabian Peninsula in your mind, you know, then there were many students from Qatar who were studying in Saudi Arabia. Either they were sent back, or if they they prefer to stay back in Saudi
And a lot
Arabia.
of
They
jobs
could not
were lost as well.
lot of jobs, you know. So, problem was for the people of Qatar. Problem was for the business people of Qatar, problem was for the students of Qatar, and there are many families, I say it with authority, those who have intermarriages with Saudi
various other,
family,
yeah.
and all that was cut off. And that is why I am saying it is very encouraging, very encouraging that Saudi Arabia has shown a large heartedness, and they invited Amir of Qatar. He also responded positively, and the role played by Qatar, Kuwait is very extraordinary. When you say what are the lessons for us, for example, Pakistan and Afghanistan, there has been kind of allegations, game of allegations against each other, but now you have seen over the period of time, Prime Minister of Pakistan Imran Khan was invited by Dr. Ashraf Ghani, and Prime Minister paid a visit.
Recently, yeah.
That was a very good visit. Then Dr. Abdullah was invited by Pakistan. Dr. Abdullah responded positively, and he visited Pakistan. That was a good visit. Then the Afghan delegation headed by their head of political section, Mullah Abdul Ghani brother,
yeah.
He came to Pakistan along with his delegation, stayed here for 3-4 days.
He has been visiting Pakistan very regularly.
Very regularly, but the point I am making is that in the past, either Afghan government was annoyed with Pakistan, or Dr. Abdullah section was annoyed with Pakistan. But this time, the policy followed by Pakistan, the state of Pakistan now, is at least being not objected by Afghans, because it is also clear to them, number one, that the old oft quoted policy of strategic depth is no more being followed by Pakistan.
Correct.
I remember when Foreign Minister Hina Rawani Khar first floated this idea that we will not follow this policy, it was appreciated. Then the second aspect of Pakistan's policy is there is a realization that if we want peace inside of Pakistan, peace in Afghanistan is imperative. It is not vice versa. Because from the tragic incident of APS to other incidents, all terrorists or most of the terrorists, let me say so, they traveled from Afghanistan, and they were traced that they came from Afghanistan, from the areas which are still remote hinterlands over there, without the writ of Afghan government, and being used as sanctuaries for these terror groups. And third aspect is there is also some kind of realization in Pakistan that that connectivity, the good connectivity, which is the base for prosperity and regional integration in terms of economic paradigms, that also cannot be achieved without peace in Afghanistan. And how peace in Afghanistan can be achieved? Not by the external forces, not by Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United States, UK, by the people of Pakistan. If all people of Afghanistan, if all factions of Afghanistan, they are encouraged to sit together and sort out their issues as being Afghans, because it is their country, it is only then that peace can be achieved.
Now, Prasad, there is another point. Now, when we hear our own Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi saying that Joe Biden must help resolve. Now, I remember when Imran Khan Saab was in USA, he met Donald Trump, and Donald Trump also mentioned that, well, I am ready to help you in this regard. And once I was approached by Mr. Narendra Modi in Japan, if I am not wrong, sir, or maybe in some Far Eastern country, and he said, well, it was totally denied by the Indian authorities. So, just imagine a president appreciating and trying to, in fact, come up with kind of not a solution for Kashmir, but at least, bringing these two countries, two nuclear states, at least at a level where they can begin to talk, to negotiate at least.
That is a very vital question, because after 5th of August 2019, the initiative that the Indian government took, I personally, I always think how these two countries can move forward. Somehow they are neighbors, and when we all agree that war is not a solution, war is rather not an option, the only option remain is to have dialogue, but with this impediment, a huge pyramid of problem that has been created after 5th of August 2019, how these two countries can move forward. When you say the foreign minister asked President Biden that he must act, that is for peace basically, because time and again at various levels in Pakistan, it has been highlighted and pointed out that the world community must look at this region. It is a nuclear flash region. The two hostile countries who have the history of wars, major wars,
Absolutely.
they are again
still at the brink of a war.
Brink of war, and then 8 million odd Kashmiris, the way they are being suppressed, the way they are being treated, whether it is a COVID-19 phenomenon or other issues, we do not know, the world does not know what is happening over there.
All right.
Although the World Human Rights Organization, they are raising their slogan, but media banned, internet banned.
We will do some sort of dissection of this human rights violation also, because we need to understand what exactly is that supposed to mean. If you allow me, sir, we have been joined by Aslam Rizvi Saab, senior former diplomat, senior ambassador. Assalamu alaikum, Rizvi Saab.
Ji, walaikum assalam.
I hope you can hear me clearly, sir. Talking about the challenges which Pakistan is going to face in the current year 2021, the domestic policy as well as the external policy of Pakistan is largely dependent on Kashmir, sir. Now, talking about the human rights violations taking place in Kashmir, or the abrogation of Article 370 or 35A for that matter, a lot has been happening, a lot is still going on, sir. The atrocities committed by the Indian military forces, I mean, that's an example and a half within its own, dictionary. But my question to you, sir, whenever we talk about the human rights violations, sir, I think the first and the foremost important right of any individual is the right to self-determination, is the right to live freely, to practice the religion and so on and so forth. At least there should be no pressure on him. In this particular case, sir, I think this is the largest prison in the world, sir, where more than 8 million innocent Kashmiri children, women, elderly, or they have been kind of prisoned, sir. And I think the situation is worse than that, sir. Your take?
Hello.
Yeah, Rizvi Saab, please.
Yes, the human rights violations of India are so well documented that not only the international media, but also the progressively we see that within the country there have been a lot of voices being raised. So much so that as you know, there is right now Asya Andrabi. She is one of the big human rights activists from there, who are known as the daughter of the nation for human rights. And she's been in and out of the jail for the last 14 years. And now at the moment, she is there facing a trial on the 18th of January, which is expected to be a sham trial to try and, to teach her a lesson and most likely to end up executing her. So this is a very worrisome matter that has happened right now. And she is not alone. She has associates with her, as well her husband and some others. So the human rights violence of the well-known, it is well documented. As you know, the Human Rights Commissioner of the UN, International Commission of the UN, has visited once and twice. They have sent the report in the last 2 years. We have seen the reports have come about. So the fact is that much more has to be done about it. What is happening there? I can't hear you.
Yeah,
I'm not having
Ambassador
your voice.
Saab, can you hear me now, sir?
No, you need to speak up a bit, please.
Well, sir, I am almost shouting, but let me. The point is, sir, that since you mentioned about the imprisonment of Asya Andrabi, her husband, I mean, I was looking at a tweet from a son yesterday or maybe the day before yesterday. And I was surprised to see that this is the story of those leaders who have committed, who have given their lives for this cause, sir. And this is what they are getting in return. Now, my point is, sir, obviously India is a nuclear state, Pakistan is a nuclear state, war is not an option. But we always end up hearing that, Pakistan gives them political support, moral support, diplomatic support. And a lot of people are talking about that, physical support is also mandatory now. That should be also given to them. Then again, there are so many ifs and buts. But what I'm saying is that whatever is being done, sir, is it enough, or you believe that there has to be a change in our strategy towards Kashmir, sir? And whatever older formula that we were sort of really relying upon hasn't worked so well.
No, I wouldn't agree with you that it has not the formula has not worked. I mean, in the recent past, the Pakistan has really put Kashmir on the forefront, apart from the United Nations General Assembly, the Prime Minister is speaking there, but also in the various international organizations, like, the Secretary General, the Office of the Secretary General, the Human Rights Organization, the General Assembly thing. Even we'll be considering of the International Court of Justice. We can also talk in terms of the Geneva Conventions. So there has been a consistent and approach. We are highlighting all the things that are going on, and what is happening by India, especially after the abrogation of 370 and 350. The whole world is aware of that. You have the Secretary General of the United Nations approaching India already, highlighting that matter. So the awareness definitely has gone up much more. The realization has also gone up much more that what is happening there is not right. The European Commission, as well as the United Nations General Assembly, two main bodies and their organizations, have been able to do that. But I must here add the fact that it's not a simple matter of the other nations supporting Pakistan on these issues or having an understanding. But it's the lack of support from them, an open support when it comes to organizations. And the reason for that, of course, as you all know, is mostly to do with the fact that they have national interests in mind. And the second fact is that, they are the geopolitical and geostrategic location of our two countries here and the blocks that we have. You see between, support of America and Pakistan, support from the China from here. But all this is changing. As you see that India has been putting pressure on all the neighbors. We've seen what they were doing with Nepal and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, etc. Look what is happening there. A change is taking place. The reaction is taking place against India as well. So I think a slow but steady change is coming. We have to continue to cultivate the regional countries more, try and get them on board, because the peace in the region has to be within the neighboring countries, and this is where the future lies, especially with regards to the economic well-being of the country. So this is my take. I think our process is a slow process, but we are making headway.
All right. Rizvi Saab, thank you very much for your comments. Now, we've also been joined in by a senior researcher and Manzoor Afridi Saab. He's a foreign affairs expert, an expert on international relations also. Afridi Saab, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time and talking to PTV World. Now, very straightforward question now, sir. Whenever we look into the international disputes, and obviously we have seen the role of United Nations hasn't played a major, it hasn't been able to be a catalyst for change, unfortunately, sir. It has been United States of America. So, is it the UN or the US, sir, that is going to sort of make any difference regarding the Kashmir issue? I'm not saying that they'll hand it over to India or hand it over to Pakistan. What I'm saying, at least they'll pave some way forward to talks. And secondly, sir, when you talk about the US role, obviously after signing BICA and so on and so forth, sir, with the Indians, it seems that the Indians are the blue-eyed boys now, and they'll enjoy all the facilities which will be provided to them by the United States of America, and UN doesn't matter. Your take?
Well, Faisal Saab, you rightly said that international organizations, especially if we see the role of United Nations organization, that is not very instrumental in settlement of international disputes. Although there are some 11 resolutions of the United Nations Security Council on the Kashmir dispute, which is very much, that is one of the oldest disputes and agenda on the table of the United Nations. But unfortunately, despite of these so many resolutions on this very hot issue of Kashmir, where the two nuclear powers are there, and at any time there can be a chance in threat of, God forbid, of nuclear war and skirmishes, but still that is unresolved. So as far as the role of United Nations is concerned generally and particularly here with the conflict of Kashmir, so that is, I think, that is the negligence of the United Nations. Second, that if we compare between the United
Negligence
States
or,
and the
I mean,
and
lack
the,
of ability? How would you put it right, sir? Negligence on such an issue, sir? I mean, this is why United Nations was created. Look
yeah,
at the number of people that were killed. Is it negligence or they are not interested?
of course, they are not interested, and
That's the
I'm
point, sir.
coming to the point that why it's not interested, because of the vested interest in the powers, the stakes of the great powers, especially if we compare between the United Nations and the United States. So that is on the part of the United States of America, which it doesn't allow to solve this issue. If United States is really entrusted, then of course it can be solved very easily. But on the other hand, there are so many interests, for example, the national interest, the economic interest of United States, and as my colleague also talked about, the geostrategic and geopolitical position of the region, especially the India, and the growing relationship of United States with India. So then how possible that United States will push the United Nations or some even other regional organizations to have a greater role in settlement of this dispute. As far as the question about the India and United States relationship is concerned, so of course we have seen very much warmth in the last some 5 years between the New Delhi and the Washington, especially the Barack Obama period, where the some big defense agreements were signed between the two countries. And after that, the Trump administration, the Mike Pompeo, who was the foreign secretary, and also the defense secretary, they too much focused on New Delhi, and the Trump administration called India as a strategic partner. Now, this strategic partnership, on the one hand, if there is Pakistan, but in broader category and a broader spectrum, if we see, there is China. So, of course, United States will want a stronger India. The Indo-Pacific concept is there, the Indian Ocean is there, and now China has secured its sea lanes through the BRI and particularly through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So that is not digestible both for India and China. So that's why in the one way or the other, United States will want to have more and more role for India in this Indian Ocean, and also to have a new concept as compared to the Asia-Pacific, a new one that is the Indo-Pacific concept, just to have a threatening position for China. So in this regard, if we see the conflict like Kashmir to be solved, so I think it is very much unrealistic on the part of the great powers, especially and more particularly the United States of America.
All right. Now, Pracha Saab, another important area, since Asya and Rabi's husband was discussed in the program, even in yesterday's program as well, her imprisonment, 15 years. And the son says that it's been, I hardly remember, I don't have any memories regarding, the childhood I had, because my father wasn't there for me. And this is a political family, influential family. People talk about them, people know. And there have been so many thousands and thousands of cases where normal people from Kashmir, they were kidnapped, either they are still missing or they were killed. Then you talk about those massive graves, if you remember. So there are so many cases. Now, this kind of a proof that has been given to the United Nations that this is a genocide of Kashmiris. This is what is happening. Still, we understand that India is a large economy. This is exactly what I get to hear, sir. India has a lot of influence. They have a large middle class. Da, 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 da. But it's the human rights, killing of one single human right. And you know, when you talk about the Goras as Goras, sir, they don't even let their dog killed. Not their dog. I mean, any thing which moves, I would say, sir. They have sensitive. They're sensitive people, sensitive nature. But when it comes to the top political decision-making bodies, it's a different ballgame altogether, sir.
That's very unfortunate, and that's why in the beginning of your show I was talking that when you talked about major foreign policy challenges, this is number one to me. Kashmir challenge to Pakistan is number one challenge even in this year, like it has been a challenge for many years in the past, and it is exaggerated because of the regime inside India at the moment, the Hindutva regime, who are the far rightists, you know, who are the extremists, you know, fundamentalists, you know, because they don't listen to any reason, they don't listen to any logic, you know. To them, elimination of Muslims and other minorities means nothing, you know. I mean, they have made it an instrument of legislation even. This Love Jihad project, for example, you know, or Ghar Wapsi program, Get Back Home program, you know, and it's not only regarding or against the Muslims over there. Look at the plight of farmers, you know, it has been over a month, you know, and in such a chilling weather, you know, nobody is bothered to listen to them or listen.
Look
to
at their commitment, yeah,
and their commitment aside, a democratic regime, democratic government must respond to the people of those who have elected any government, you know. So, that is the callousness over there, and in this callousness, in this regime of fundamentalists or extremists, you know, that we are talking of the plight of Kashmiris, we are talking of the rights of Kashmiris, and this is very unfortunate. Asiya Andrabi is behind the bars, Yasin Malik Saab, you know, who is sick, you know, and doctors have advised for his treatment, but he is not being allowed to come out.
His health is deteriorating every day, yeah.
His health is deteriorating every day, and there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of Kashmiri youth either perished away or missing, you know, or killed, you know, and their families, they are running from pillar to post in pursuit of their well-being, where are their siblings, you know. So, this is the state of very sad state of affairs inside Indian Jammu and Kashmir, and Pakistan has to be with them, you know. Prime Minister of Pakistan, Foreign Minister of Pakistan and others, they do raise their voices, but these voices which should have been heard in Washington, which should have been heard in London, which should have been heard in Brussels in the headquarter of EU. It's very sad that the political will is not shown there.
So, it won't, so year 2021 will make no difference as such. It is going to be a similar year like yesteryears.
Let us hope the conscience of the world awakes, and the plight of Kashmiris is heard somewhere in the world, you know, because somehow it's not only Pakistan, but the UN Security Council owes a lot, you know, because they made a pledge and they have the duty, responsibility to get it fulfilled, you see.
All right, let's hope and pray, sir, that this year brings some sort of peace for those people living in absolute miserable conditions, sir. Whenever I get to read about that or see or hear from friends, it's not something easy to digest, Prasa. We can always pray and hope, and I think media can play a very, very vital role, and we should all be a part of
have a role to play.
Absolutely, absolutely. Prasa, pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for your presence. It was great to have you, Afridi Saab, and it was pleasure to have Aslam Rizvi Saab as well in the program, and that's all we have for this, Saab. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.